All right, so now we are going to add a button on top of our map, okay, right about here. We're going to add a button that says show list. So when that button is clicked, we're going to go to new activity, which will show a list view of all the locations where an earthquake has occurred. Okay, now we have to rearrange a few things here. So what I'm going to do actually is the following. I'm going to create a relative layout outside here. I'm going to say relative layout, and I'm going to add a few things here. I'm going to say XML and S. Okay, Android. In fact, I'm going to just copy this and put it here like that. So Android height, to say match parent. And while we're here, go say Android width, say match parent as well. Just like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this entire fragment and put it inside of our linear layout here. And we need to make sure we don't have any spaces at the top, because then we'll have an error when the Android system starts to parse this XML. All right, so we don't need this anymore. And right at the top here, we can put a button. Give it an ID. Show list btn. Let me put it center horizontal to be true. Align parent top also to be true. Let's give it background to say accent color. Why not? Text, let's make it say show list. Give it text color to be white. So it's Android white. Okay, let's style to be, actually I want this style, text style to be bold. Like that. Let's see if this is, there we go. So there we go, it's show list. In fact, maybe this could be a different color. Let's use primary. See if that works. Okay, that's not bad. Good. So if we run our app right now, it should still work, except we will have the show list at the top showing. There we go. There's our button, it's show list. That's very good. All right. Let's go back to our maps here, and we're going to instantiate that button at the top here. So we're going to say private button show list btn. You know the drill. So here we're going to say show list btn is equal to new. Actually, it's a cast here. So find view r.id show list button. And we are going to go ahead and set it up. So we're going to say show list button. In fact, we can just do it right here. Show list button that's set on click, new on click listener. And we want to start an activity. Okay, new intent. It's going to be map. Like this, we are going to go to a details or a list. I'm going to call this quakes list.class. Okay, we haven't created this. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create that. In fact, let's move this maps activity to activity, refactor everything. So now let's add new empty activity, and we're going to call this quakes list activity. Like that. Good. Now let's go to our quakes list. What this is going to have is, of course, we're going to add just a list view. Okay, simple list. We are not going to use the recycler viewer because, frankly, we don't need that sophistication, or we don't need to customize it. And plus, I like to show you an easier way to create a list view. Now let's go to our quake list here, and what we're going to do, we are going to add. Let's go to our design view. We're going to add a list view. There we go. Let's add it there. Now we have our list view. I'm going to just center it all like that. Perfect. So we have our list view now, an ID. List view. Perfect. Oops. List view like that. Perfect. So now we have our list view. So now go back to our Quakes list view here. What do we need to do? We're just going to do the same what we did in the app maps activity, except we're just going to go and fetch all of the Quakes as well and just show in a list view. Okay, so let's go ahead and instantiate a few things here. So I'm going to say private array list. I'm going to make it a string. Okay, array list like that. I'm going to say private list view. I'm going to call this a list view. And of course, I'm going to say private request queue because we need that to fetch all of the information from our API. Private. Now I'm going to create an array adapter, and we haven't talked about this, but this array adapter allows us to create a list view, right? An adapter that can be connected to a list view and get all of that data. So essentially the same thing that we did with Recycle Reviewer, but a little bit simpler. Okay, so this is going to be array adapter, just like that. And then we're going to create a list of earthquakes. Okay, so we're going to say list earthquakes. I'm going to call this quake list. So we need to import our list there. Okay. Now, what we're going to do here is the following. The first thing we're going to do is to instantiate our quake list. New array list, like that. And let's make sure our list view is also created. Find view, find view, r.id dot list view. I believe that's what we called. Well, that's the ID we gave. Let's go say q2 is equal to volley and that new request and pass this. Okay, so just setting things up. And while we are at it, let's go ahead and say array list as well is equal to new array list. Perfect. And then we're going to call our get all quakes. I'm going to pass in a string URL. Okay, so we're going to go ahead here and say void get all quakes. String URL. So now we're going to do the same. So we're going to say JSON object request. We've done this a million times now. Equal to new JSON object request. I'm going to pass here a request dot method dot get. We need to pass the URL string, so we're going to say URL, and then next we're going to pass a listener. So new listener, you know the drill. We have to add the error because that could happen too. So we're going to say new error listener, and let's finalize our statement. The semicolon. Okay, so we have here our response. Okay, again, we're just doing the same thing. We're just going to go and fetch all of the earthquakes that we fetched in our maps. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy the code because there's no need to repeat myself here. Copy this code and put it here, and I'll explain it, obviously. Okay, so I'm going to change a few things here. I'm going to say this is going to be JSON array.length. Perfect. So what are we doing here? The same thing. We created a JSON array to get the features, okay? And then we went through, we got properties, when we got geometry, remember that from previous videos, and then we got the coordinates. So we put the coordinates inside of our doubles here, and then we construct the earthquake object. What do we do here? We then take that array list that we created previously here, okay? And we are adding just the place name because that's what we're going to be showing. Okay, we just want to show the title of each earthquake. Now here is the part that is newer to you, but fear not, it's not too bad. So what are we doing here? We have our array adapter. Remember here, we created this array adapter. So we're instantiating it, array adapter, and we're passing in context. In this case, it's going to be our activity. And then we are passing in the android.r.layout.simple list item, because this is the layout that comes with the Android. It's the simplest possible. It just has one item inside of it. So it only has one text view, which is exactly what we want. So you can see this is pre-baked code, right? This comes from android.r layout. It's not something we created. And then we pass in just r.id.text1. Okay, it has to be matched with this item 1 here, right? If we put r.id.text2, then we have an error because this layout here, again, by Android, only has one text view. So we are saying we want to go and fetch the actual text view, okay, which is just text1. And then we pass our array list, which by now has each earthquake that we parsed, the get place or the title of it, okay? And of course we say list view, okay, and set adapter, just like what we did with recycler viewer, okay, because it's still an adapter. And then we pass our array adapter, which we just created, and then we say notify that data set changed, okay, to make sure that everything is congruent. Now if we run this, actually if we run it, this is going to give an error because we need to pass something here. Well, what are we going to be passing? We're going to be passing constants.url, just like that, because the constants.url class has our URL where we can go and get stuff from. All right. Okay, so there we go. Oh, I forgot something here. This is beautiful because even Android Studio tells me this is never used, which should tell me right away that I need to do something here. You remember that we always have to add it to our queue. Otherwise, we are going to run into trouble. So right here, I'm going to say queue, right? This is volley that add. We're going to add our JSON request. If we run this, we should be able to click on that list. Okay. Everything should be still working. All right. As previously, say show, and look at that. Now we have this whole list of items. Now you notice here, I didn't put a limit, so it's pulling all of the earthquakes that have happened this week. That's a lot of them, as you can see, this indicator, right? So if you don't want that, you can go back here and say, instead of the array length that is coming in, we can just say constants.limit, which, if you remember correctly, it's going to give a limit of 30. All right, just go run again. If we go back to show list here, now you can see it's way smaller list, about 30. Okay, perfect. And of course, this was just to show you, right? The reason why I added this really was just to show you how to create simpler array adapters. Okay, this kind of array adapters that, as you can see, we didn't have to customize ourselves like we've been doing with our recycler view. If you want to do that, right? If you wanted to add more items to this in this row, of course, you will have to create a recycler view, just like what we did. If you come here and say list view that's set on item click listener, because there's a difference, right? So we're gonna use it on item click listener. So new on item click listener. Okay, now we have the position and the ID of each item. We can just go ahead, for instance, and say toast that make text. Let's get application context, and we can say, for instance, clicked, and we can append position like that. So toast that long that show. Okay, so it will give it position ID or position number of the item clicked. So if we run this and go to show list again, you tap, click 0, that's the 0 position. This should be 1, right? You can keep going as you wish. If you really wanted to extend this, you could actually make it so that when you click, of course, you'll have to change the coding and the things that we are getting, right? And you know, here we already know that we are getting latitude and longitude. So if you really want to take this to the next level, you can actually make it so that when you click, it takes to a new activity with a new map and shows this location. Let's see. That shouldn't be too hard. In fact, I would encourage you to take on that challenge, right? So make it so that when you click, it takes to the map and shows this one location that we just tapped with all that information, okay? Congratulations for sticking with me again. I really appreciate it. And I hope you're able to take this application, add more to it. And as you can see, we have a lot of things that we can do with these APIs out there, especially the USGS API. That API, you can fetch a lot more data and you can display on the maps and make really, really powerful applications. So I really encourage you to do so. Go back to the API here and look around and read more about what else you can do. Try to come up with other things you can do with this data and make an application. So you can use this as the basis, whatever you want to build that includes Google Maps. All right, so congrats again, and I will see you next.